We're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new Leadership Playbook. I'm Keyshawn Hughes, and I'm joined by Natalie Jobity. We do this series every few weeks, and we have conversations related to leadership. And we are going to a really great, deep place today, talking about boundary setting, something that is essential and foundational to our leadership journey. So, before we begin and dive deeper, Natalie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, everyone who's listening or listening to the replay. My name is Natalie Jobity. Yes, this is an exciting topic. So, okay, I'm going to go off on the topic. Let me introduce myself. Um, my company is called The Unveiled Way, and I call myself the Brilliance Unveiler because one of the things I realized in the past couple of years is one of my gifts is seeing potential and gifts in people. And so unveiling brilliance is part of my brand, the whole Unveiled Way. And I work with seasoned executives and founders of color, especially, but all women, but founders of color are my sweet spot, to help them conquer their self-doubt, unleash, amplify what I call their brilliance, and also ignite their leadership superpowers so that their impact and of course their income will increase because the heart of everything I do is impact, but with impact comes everything else that we want, all the prosperity, all the abundance, all the things. And so I'm so big on, speaking about authentic leadership and leadership development, leadership presence. My past life as an image consultant makes me, go a little bit different than other leadership coaches in my thought leadership. And I'm just loving, elevating, empowering, and doing this new leadership playbook with Kashawn is a great way to just get all those nuggets that are all locked inside of us as we grow and evolve with all the work I have done in my life, professionally and personally. It's like I want to share what I know because old Natalie didn't know all the things that this Natalie knows. And if I could help somebody else, take them along, pass the baton, all the things, I am here for it.
I love what you shared. So much of what you shared just resonates with me deeply, just in your story, Natalie. For me, I just wanted to start with just a personality trait of mine based on conversations that we've had, Natalie. You've introduced me to reintroduced me to Clifton Strength Finders. And my top strength finder is strategic. I'm a strategic thinker. I'm a listener and I'm extremely empathetic. Empathy is also one of my strengths. So just sharing that, it has guided me throughout my leadership journey. I'm a wife and a mom and a founder of Neurosavvy Leadership. And I use these principles in my personal life, and they've been expressed themselves through my career in such a wonderful, pivotal way. And through Neurosavvy Leadership, I coach one-on-one executives and leaders at organizations like Ulta Beauty, like Microsoft, and many more. I don't want to name drop so many, but I've been very blessed to work with the top leaders at top organizations one-on-one, and then also collectively through training and development and consulting work. All neuroscience based, all based in what we each share is a brain, and they tend to work differently, but we experience them in similar ways. And so I talk about that to create dynamics where people feel included, they feel like they belong, and we can come and show up in our lives and in our work as our best selves, both in our best wellness, most well-being oriented selves, and then also having some fun, being in our power, collectively and individually. So that's what I do with my work at Neurosavvy Leadership. And so much of my story today as a person who talks about neuroscience-based leadership all the time is bounded in the conversations I had, I would say about 5 or 6 years ago with my therapist about setting boundaries. Like I feel like that was like the early beginning seed stages for where I am now, being able to be invited to stages and be on this platform with Natalie in her expertise and talk about this with so much, I would say, confidence and enthusiasm, because I know the power of having to set boundaries for yourselves as a leader and how it can grow and blossom to help not only you, but everyone that is connected to you.
I want to say that conviction of knowing that, like, that's why we were so excited. It's the conviction of knowing if you'll take away just a few nuggets about boundaries and start to implement them, how much it will change your fulfillment in what you do, your joy, and also the strength of your relationships. Because I think a big aspect of boundary setting for me in my personal life and professional life is how it's impacted the way I show up in my relationships and how much more ease I have in those relationships because I'm very clear about my boundaries. And it's like
Yes.
there's less resentment, there's less like irritation, there's less because when we have very clear boundaries that we honor, because it's not just about setting them, we have to set them and then we have to honor them. And when we
Yes.
do both, it's like, oh, I don't have to worry about that. Oh, this is so much easier because I know that I don't take, let's say, for example, I don't have any client work on the weekend or after a certain time in the evening. So if my schedule is what it is, my schedule is what it is. If a client says, "Can you work with me at 8 p.m. Eastern?" That's a no for me, and I have no guilt. There's no shame. It's like, no, I work from these hours to these hours. There's my time, and they work within that. And if they can't, I could decide. So here's the other part about boundaries. I could decide in any particular situation to relax my boundary if
Yes.
I want to, but that's my choice. Like again, it's about our own self authority
Yes.
in our lives, and so I feel like boundary setting. I love that I just said that because
Me too.
boundary setting is one of those pillars I believe of our
Yes.
self authority as
Absolutely.
leaders, as executives, as entrepreneurs, as all
Mm.
the things.
It is. It is that. It is that, and so much more. I'm so glad you already dropped a gem, talking about time-based boundaries, like a way for people to approach it. Because I feel like for me, I'll just share my own story. Like going back to that therapy session, how this was possibly in 2018. I can go back and I still remember the moment so clearly. This was pre-pandemic, so I was in the office with my therapist, and she mentioned this during our conversation. She just mentioned, asked me a question about what type of boundaries I had. And she continued to talk. I remember after that, and it was almost like the Charlie Brown moment where I heard the womp, womp, womp. I didn't hear anything else because I was still stuck on the word boundaries. It was new
Mm.
vocabulary for me. And when it was my turn to respond, I said, what are boundaries? I'm just still stuck on that question you asked me about. Do I have any? What are they even? And that started my homework. She said, well, that would be a great homework assignment for you to go and find out what boundaries are to you. So that's where we want to start. You've already shared a type of boundary that can be extremely successful and powerful for leaders, entrepreneurs.
Yes.
I'm curious about the definition of boundaries.
So let's.
Yes, for you.
Okay, so my book, which you all can see, it's Your Time to Shine, Girl. I definitely mentioned boundaries because again, it's a very big part of everything. So I'm
Yes.
going to read something. I'm got a couple of definitions I have in here. So Henry Cloud and John Towson have a book called Boundaries. They have a book called Boundaries. They're actually books on boundaries. That's how
There
big it is.
are. Please
So
give.
they put it this way, and I quoted it in my book.
Mm,
Knowing what I am to own and take responsibility for gives me freedom. If I know where my yard begins and ends, I'm free to do with it what I like. Taking responsibility for my life opens up many different options. However, if I do not own my life, my choices and options are very limited. So that's one way to look at it. Here's another way. Your boundaries are like fences and not like walls that prevent anyone from getting into your quote unquote yard. So instead, boundaries say, you can come up to this line in my yard, but no further. But you must take ownership of the parameters of your boundaries. One other quick definition. Prentice, this is one I love. Prentice Hemphill. I don't even know who he is, but this is a
yes.
big thing. He says,
He did that.
boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously.
Oh, I love that.
That's a very simple but profound way to look
It
at
is.
boundaries. Honor me, honor you. Acknowledge me, acknowledge you. But it first starts with me. And I feel like that part is like back to like one of the components I feel like of boundaries, which is about looking at it as self-care and
Absolutely.
self-well-being,
Mhm.
because it says these are the things. So one of the words I use all the time when is, we know about guardrails. That's a part of boundaries. And I
Yes.
say guardrails sometimes, God, guardrails and
Mhm.
guardrails. So when
Oh,
we've established the God and guardrails in our life, which say that when I have these, again, not walls, but fences around aspects of my life, I can move and flow in a way that serves me and allows me to thrive and prosper.
absolutely.
However, if I don't have these guardrails or guardrails around me, people can come and go as they please. Like I said, the yard analogy is very good. My playground, another word I love it in terms
These
of
are so good.
is playing in the playground of
Mhm.
my possibilities as a leader. If I
Yes.
allow a bunch of other people to just come in my playground and anybody can come and play at any time, oh my God, my playground is going to be a mess. But if I have fences around my playground, metaphorical playground, and I have time limits, I have qualifiers of the people allowed in that playground.
That's right.
All those are what are under the umbrella of boundaries. All
So
those are boundaries. It's like, so the energy of the people in my life, that's a big boundary I have right now and I honor right now. Like,
energetic boundary.
who,
Yes.
who do I want in my circle and what energy
Mhm.
do they need to have so that I know that they're aligned with me and my values?
Wow.
That one is huge. I've actually let go of some people and I'm drawing towards other people because of that very specific boundary connected to the energetics of the person. Energetics, that's a whole other thing in itself.
It
But
is.
the heart of it is where their heart, the person's heart posture, because what
Mhm.
comes out, what you have in your heart is what we feel and experience as about your being. And so energy for me, energetics is like when I feel a certain way about somebody, that tells me something about where their motivations, where their heart posture, where their intent, all I get a sense of that. And if it's not feeling aligned for me, I don't want them in my playground. I don't want them in my circle. So I
Mhm.
establish boundaries of I will engage with you at this level, that's a boundary, but not at a
Mhm.
deeper, more intimate, more inner circle level.
Yes. And so what I'm imagining, all of the verbiage and the words that you're using are painting a picture, if you will, for me. And I love the metaphorical picture of having a yard, a playground. I'm thinking of those terms and because they're ones in which we can envision for
Yeah.
ourselves. I was wanting to also share a definition for boundaries that really speaks to me in another book that I've learned boundaries through. Her name is Dr. Nedra Glover Tawwab. She is a
Yeah.
therapist and she puts great content that is very practical and useful and easy to understand on her platforms. And she wrote a book called Set Boundaries, Find Peace that I read and took a few notes from. And she describes boundaries as expectations and a need to
Mm,
help you feel safe and comfortable in relationships. So
mm-hmm,
simple. They're
mm-hmm,
expectations that we set for ourselves and that
mm-hmm.
we put out there so others can know what to expect from us. Right?
Yes.
They are tied to our specific needs, our very base needs as human beings. We need to have boundaries. I
Yeah.
feel like as women, I'll say, speak for myself as a Black woman, as a mom, as all the different roles in which I carry, I have been socialized in many ways to just show up and be everything for everyone. I've been socialized in ways to not have any boundaries, to
Yes.
selfless.
Yes.
But boundaries are very much about having a healthy self, a healthy self identity.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, and it's foundational to without boundaries. I'm curious about what my own understanding of self worth is.
Because I love that question and love that back to what I said about self-authority, right? You have
Yes.
to, one of the pillars of self-authority is having healthy boundaries. So without boundaries, what does that say about you when you don't have or honor your boundaries? It
Mm.
says that you believe you're not as important as other people. That's one way to look at it. Or
Yeah.
it conveys to me like that people pleasing behavior, like which I was raising my hand. That was me for a long time. Like I will shape shift to be who
Yes.
they need me to be, which is the
Mhm.
opposite of I will be who I am and they will meet me there. That's
Ah,
a whole different way
my
of
goodness.
playing.
Of playing, of being in the playground together. Yes. Meet me in my yard. Meet me in this
Where I am, as
playground.
opposed to me going, I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna go there, and I'm gonna be who I think you need me to be. That's the
Mm,
shapeshifter.
it is.
And you know what? When you're doing that, you feel like it's the right thing to do, and people might like you. But guess what?
Is it
They're
the
not
real?
getting to know the true,
That's
authentic version of you because you are faceting and
yes.
code switching all the things to
Yes.
please them. And
Mm,
so, at the end of the day, you know where that left me?
mm.
Non-fulfilled, not connected,
Yes.
not feeling true into relationships or power relationships because I wasn't allowing myself to be me and say what I wanted.
Absolutely. It left me burned out. And something I learned through that homework and this continued work now 5 years later, deep in my boundary work, I love the way my life in my yard looks now. I can't even say it without like joyfully, gleefully, like just expressing how great I did that homework and now practice it daily. But I just think about that, how important it is. And you talked about energetics. When I think about boundaries and I think about energetics, I see energetics as our energy in motion, emotions in motion. That's how I look at energies, emotions in motion. They have to move, they can't be stuck. And a clue that I've had for myself where I know a boundary either hasn't been set, needs to be, or has been crossed is I feel it first. I have a feeling, a sensory feeling within my body that lets me know, hey, there's a boundary misalignment here that needs to be addressed.
So that's great, because so one of my big breakthroughs with boundaries, I came with, and Brene Brown was me.
Yes.
I love, she's one of my gurus. I don't want to use that word, but she's one of my people I look up to in terms of all the work, I used to dive, I can't get the word, just indulge in all her books and read them over and over again. And one of the things one of the ways I understood about boundaries from one of her books, I forget which book it was, is when I realized I would get, I am prone to getting resentful. That's one of my weak points.
Yes.
But what she made me see was, I don't forget how she put it, but it was like, when I'm feeling resentment, I have to check in with myself with, wait a minute, is that because I did not either honor or set a boundary that was important to me? Because what would happen is, again, not having the right boundaries, people violate it. Guess what happens? I'm feeling like all the mine is anger or resentment.
Yes.
Or, why did that person do this? And then when I learned about, wait, Natalie, was that about them, or was that about you not honoring and not setting, establishing, making clear? Because again, this is an important part. We have to be clear in our communications about what our boundaries are.
It's communication. It absolutely.
So we have to set them. Then we have to communicate them clearly to others, and then we have to honor them. Because you could set them and communicate it, but then somebody violates the boundary and you don't do anything about it. Guess what? It ain't a boundary then.
No, it's not. It's a suggestion. It's an idea. It's a suggestion that somebody put in a box, a suggestion box that maybe or may not be read and opened, right? It's just, yes, it's not useful to you. I love how we just continue to bring it back to you as an individual, back to that autonomy. And it's scary, particularly for, I would say once again, women who either don't have experience with it or they've tried setting boundaries and have had negative or
backlash,
blowback from setting boundaries. So I'd love to address that. So advice for people who are in that realm now or considering it or have had those types of experiences.
So I mentioned to you earlier, Krishan, that I did a whole 2-hour in-person interactive talk with a group of about 30 women with African heritage about boundaries, and it was supposed to be professional and ended up being personal. And here's why the personal one ended up taking over the whole conversation. It's because when it's people we care and love, and we have either become used to playing a certain role in that their relationship, or are so overly concerned about, like, it could be our children, it could be our spouse. Though that's when it's really hard to maintain the boundaries. Because, so a lot of what we're sharing in that 2-hour conversation was about, but what when they ask me this and I want to, as a mother, as a wife, as a sister, as a daughter, that's when it's so hard. So if we can't manage it well in our personal lives, I think it becomes even more difficult to establish them in our professional lives. So I would say the strategy is to try to try to address it from our personal lives first. And then so one of the things to tell yourself when you're setting a boundary in terms of the backlash you could get, especially from people you care about, is, I am not setting this boundary from a place of ill will. I am setting this boundary from a place of the greater good of me and the other people.
That's right.
And when you can really believe and own that, the way you communicate that boundary and honor it will come from a place of generosity, grace, and love. And so even if the other person, the spouse, the child, the mother, whoever, the brother, the sister, may have a certain way feeling about it, if you keep communicating from that place of this is for the greater good, mine is important as well as theirs, and you communicate from that and set it from that place, then eventually I believe and know that they will start to respect that boundary.
Over
It,
time.
over time, it will take time.
It's strategic work that happens over time. It happens over multiple conversations, and we have to use our voices.
Yeah.
Whether that is a use of our voice in writing first. If we can't speak it and voice it vocally, maybe it's about sending a message. Maybe it's about setting aside time to have a family meeting, to have the time and space to emote, to share in a
Yeah.
way that feels comfortable to you. And it might just start with one small request, one small acknowledgement. That's the thing about boundaries. I feel like because they can seem so large and nebulous, people can sometimes deny the power of small beginnings.
Yes.
I want us to just start there, start someplace small. I love your suggestion to start personally. And I have an additional suggestion. If workplace is the place where you feel you're most empowered and
Mm.
you have boundaries set there, maybe try to transfer some of those skills, transfer some of those learnings, some of those behaviors that you have at work and leverage that at home, and vice versa. If home
Yeah.
is a place where you feel like you're most empowered, identify transferable ways to integrate and start small with boundary setting in either realm of your life. I just truly believe, from a neuroscience perspective, leverage the habits that are already the neural pathways that
Yeah.
are already in place so that you can have that type of experience in environments that you find yourself in, either home or work.
Well, let's go back to the idea of the playground. We have
Yes.
a personal playground, a home playground, and a work playground. And I love what you just said, because I think the key thing you said there is, where do you feel your most empowered self? And so, because to set and honor those boundaries takes confidence, it takes self assurance, it takes self worth and value in ourselves. And so, wherever we have that, I love that. Wherever we feel that the most, whatever playground we're in, where it could be church, whatever aspect
Yes.
of your life, whatever playground, whatever playgrounds you play in,
Yes.
where you feel your most empowered self,
Mm-hmm.
take in how it's impacting you in that playground and transferring that to the other playgrounds you play at. I love that example, Cliff.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yes, yes. Because we want to give practical steps for people. So you've laid them out. First, having that self awareness either come to you on your own through your own self reflection, or for me, how it came to me in a therapy session with a
Yeah.
group of girlfriends. Just understanding and coming to a place where you're asked those questions and then coming up with the answers of, okay, these are the realms in which I see a need for a boundary that I need to now craft and set. And then the second tip is to then share that, to communicate it, which is
Yeah.
challenging. So doing that in a way, maybe practicing with someone before you are actually about to do it, particularly for executive women. I'm thinking about women who have been in the chats. When we put this out there, they put questions for us directly about how to do this successfully, particularly in today's remote environment. I want to read the question that came up specifically, where someone said, in this hybrid and remote world, I'm finding it harder and harder to set boundaries that work for me. Rigid is not my jam, but how can I find a flexible approach that doesn't go off the rails almost immediately? So,
Yeah.
particularly for women who value their work and they have certain responsibilities, are perceived in certain ways at work, and they want to protect that identity, their professional identity, and still show up in a way that is a win-win, that is a win for the people they work with and also a win for them personally. What would you say,
Yeah,
Natalie?
that one just so it's so layered with that one,
It
because
is.
with hybrid, I mean, you have the in person and the remote, and so it's back to, I think, getting clear for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
what is the best environment, whether it's away from work or at work, both places where you do your best work, where the best of your brilliance shines through. We
Mm-hmm.
all know, like we all can have the understanding and awareness of when I work between this time and this time, or when I don't take meetings, every meeting every hour on the day, whatever that looks like. We all know, like, when I do that, I'm like done, or when I do that, I'm like, I'm not great, or when. So understanding where we flourish and shine the most in a given workday, whether it's in person or away from the office, that's the first step. And then, okay, so if I know I need 2 hours of strategizing time, or whatever, set up your day, your calendar, set up your. I feel like some of the things when I'm working with clients, we're literally talking about their calendars and how to establish boundaries in their calendars to protect their time. Because guess what? Our calendar is where our time is either used or misused. Ooh. And if we aren't scheduling things, like, so from, okay, let me give an example of and I'm an entrepreneur, so I don't have the whole all that. Mm-hmm. But I know I need to exercise and walk outside at least 4 times a week. Yes. I literally have to put it in my calendar before the week starts, because if I don't, my time is going to go away and be like, oh my God, I didn't walk for 3 days or whatever. Yeah. That's the boundary I have in terms of, for my well-being, I need to make sure I'm not just on Zooming every day or working with clients or doing all the other work as an entrepreneur, that I am setting aside time to take care of myself. And one of the ways I do that is by walking. So looking at our calendars and really strategizing the things, the time blocks, I need to unwind for 15 minutes before this meeting blocks, whatever that looks like. That's so practical and basic, but that's like the most, to me, low bar way to set boundaries, whether you're working in the office or working remotely, to say, I need to do this to help me to thrive and shine better.
I love that. Yes. Try that, everyone who's watching. A couple more tips. I felt that. I literally felt that. I'm like, that calendar says it all. Okay. Oh. And as a person who's a mom and also, an entrepreneur, I'm a professional, we have a family calendar. These are things that I've actually coached women leaders on. And it's surprising to me, but as a coach, I definitely don't share the surprise when people tell me they don't have a family calendar. If they're a working professional and they're having challenges with boundaries, that is my one suggestion and recommendation to begin to how can we utilize technology. We have all of these different calendar apps. How can you make it so that everyone can have the same transparent view of what's going on in each other's lives? Transparency is very key when it comes to setting boundaries. Communication is another key, I would say. And also communicating assertively, using a lot of I language. This is what I need to be able to show up in a way that's best and healthiest for our family, for this role, this company. Providing context. People don't, that's another thing, this whole mind reading thing that sometimes people get into, like, oh, she should have known, or he should have, doesn't he see, can't he understand? Not unless you share it.
Exactly. We cannot assume people know what we want unless we say it out loud.
Yes. So finding ways to do that. I actually used Chat GPT to prepare for this. I just wanted some suggestions. Like, if I am a woman in the workplace who's a working mom and I need to share that I have certain boundaries related to my availability, what's a way that I can do that? Give me some specific words that I can use to start that conversation. And a suggestion was given. Sometimes people just need the language. They just need ideas. And then you modify it in a way that works for you. And then understand, it may take multiple conversations. People might misinterpret what you share. So continue to circle back. Continue to show up assertively, confidently, with a win-win in mind. Your own best interest, and also the person in which you're communicating with. So those are my suggestions, just a few.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, what I think everything in that is excellent. And I would just add, with that win-win, there's win-win, and then there's we all win. There's a whole other level above.
Tell me about this. Yes, let's go to the next level. Let's do it. Yes.
That's what I was saying, like the greater good. That's where I was coming from. Like, we all win. So like, it's not just me, it's we all win. So bringing that engine again, coming from that more benevolent place that we all have in our hearts, I think would allow us to give us the patience, because guess what? I got to show this. It will show up. Look. Yes.
Oh, I love, yes. Button.
I literally, I'm not great there. I have a little code. I'm like right in front of my light, like, patience, Natalie. So
yeah, it's a virtue.
Because with everything to do with peopling.
Yes. Oh my
And
goodness.
the other part is, and I think it's another point. I know oh my God, we always have time. I have so much more I
Yes.
could say, but I want to say that also recognizing that everybody isn't where we are in terms of the self-awareness and
Wow. This
self-growth.
is so
So
good.
having the grace and the patience to be like, they may not understand why I'm communicating this. So I'm going to give them the patience to communicate it, like you said, repeatedly more than once. You might have a boundary wrong. Well, I'm only going to do it this many times. Like for me, it's like,
Yes.
I'll give you this much grace. But
Yes.
after that, okay, I don't have any more grace to give you.
That's
Right? Like,
right.
we have to even have boundaries around that. So like how much rope we give, I break grace, how much leeway,
Yes.
how much
Mhm.
how much bandwidth we give somebody else to meet us where we are, and that's our choice as well. But
Wow.
again, have a proper healthy boundary around. We don't want anyone to take advantage of our grace and our benevolence. We have to protect that as well, even though it's something we give out. That has to have its own boundary too, because unfortunately there are people around in our circles who are not for our good. So that's a reality.
Mm-hmm.
A,
It is a reality.
it is a reality. So I think for me, having a lot of unhealthy, toxic relationships in my past has made my boundaries sort of kind of very high with people until I know I can move that fence down, because I
Yes.
have been hurt by not having boundaries. So again, I'm just being transparent about,
Thank you.
for Natalie, her fences are a little bit, and she's tall too, so her fences
I love it.
is willing to go cut it down when she sees like, okay, she can trust that person. There's
Woo.
the person.
A part of my boundary work was identifying when I do feel safe. So it's about safety, right? And having my needs met.
Yeah.
According to Nedra Tawwab. And so she has 3 categories for boundaries. And I'm going to wrap this up: healthy, porous, and rigid. So I feel like they're healthy. So to provide another visual, like you were talking about a yard and a fence. I was in a client session last week that talked about a brick wall. And I said, well, can you cut some windows and doors into that?
Yeah.
Like a
No
fence has a
wall.
gate. They have
Yeah.
a door that can swing both ways, and you decide whether to open up or to put a lock on it. So
Right.
these are ways that we can dress and address the needs that we have for boundaries. We don't want them to be too rigid.
It can't be walls.
That's right.
The court said it before. It is not. They're not a wall. That's why I use the word fences. Fences have big gaps in them.
Yes.
You can
They're
peek.
poor. Yeah. Yes.
They're
Yes.
poor.
Well,
Yeah.
we don't want porous ones that where people don't respect them and we don't respect them. We want them to be healthy.
Yeah.
Like some air can flow through. Okay, we can see through. I can see you, you can see me, but we still have those limits that are healthy, that help us to feel in our power and on our autonomy as individuals. I think that's I want people to walk away from this understanding that you can sense and feel your boundaries when there's a need for them, when they've been crossed, when you possibly need to adjust them. And communicating them is key. So the feeling orientation and then the communication, I think those are things that I would love for people to walk away with. Is there anything that you want people to make sure they walk away with from this conversation?
As we wrap this up, we always can talk for a whole hour and a half.
Yes,
but
we could.
I will say that I think that, again, back to the three phases for me. First, setting the boundary, then communicating the boundary in a way that's understandable, clear, and confident, and with grace. And the third one, I feel like the really important part of it, we have to honor that boundary. Because I know people set boundaries and then don't honor them. And it's like I said, it's like they didn't have a boundary. It was a boundary in their mind. So we have to honor. Honoring means when somebody violates that, to take the steps to let them know that they violated, and there's consequences to that violation. And you get to choose what those consequences are. So set, communicate, honor.
Oh, so good. This was good. Oh my goodness. I needed this. I feel like, because I said I'm still in this journey. I'm still doing my work.
We're all in the journey.
And that's important too when it comes to leadership. There's never like an end point. It's like there's always a process and an unfolding. I put a comment or a question in the chat. I'm curious, what other topics would you like Natalie and I to cover in a new Leadership Playbook series? We have a really brief survey that we put together. We've gotten some feedback that's been excellent. So we want to hear from you. This is an opportunity for you to share ideas, commentary, things that are personal to you, and also things that are related to the professional that you want to be able to grow and address. And we hope that this is a safe, welcome space for you to do that. So please fill out that survey, and we will be unfolding and releasing some more topics that we hope are truly aligned with your interest in mind.
I just put the link to my book because I'm always bad at the link thing.
Yes.
But in my book, it's so many things in there. But boundaries are definitely a part of that because it's important to leaders, it's important to everybody. Every human needs boundaries. But as executive leaders and founders, that we have to always be reevaluating. And that's another point. Evaluating, do I have enough boundaries, or do I need to modify or change my
Yes.
boundaries because I'm a different person, or I'm a more evolved version of myself? What needs to change in my boundaries? All of that is part of it.
So important. And lastly, I'll put a link to my services. If you're ready to level up in 90 days or less, some people do it in less with neurosavvy leadership support, please allow me to do that. There's a place where you can go to find out more about what we offer with neurosavvy leadership. But thank you so much once again for joining. Thank you, Imani, for commenting and enjoying this conversation. Please share it with others that you think it will be useful for. And we will see you soon in another 2 weeks on Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.